I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, the Secretary and Treasurer of GATA, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. We're talking about Chris Powell. He's also a newspaper columnist up in his home stomping ground of Connecticut. He is on vacation in Florida. Chris, thank you for giving us this beautiful outside shot with the birds singing in the background. Chris, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Well, good to see you. I want to start with what you're doing at GATA. I know you're always trying to get transparency and trying to get these guys from dumping, I don't know, a week ago or so, they dumped $1 billion on the market in 2 minutes. And we're supposed to think that's natural. Of course, none of the mainstream press, Fox Business or CNBC or anybody else will even say, wow, somebody dumped $1 billion on the market to drive the price down so they could lose some money. So what's going on at GATA in trying to get more transparency with these rigged, bogus, phony precious metals markets?
Well, I think what's most interesting to us lately, Greg, is the questions, or are the questions that we've been putting to the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Treasury, and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission through U.S. Representative Alex Mooney from West Virginia. Mooney has sent letters to the Fed and the Treasury asking them to specify which markets they're secretly trading in. He got an answer back from the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, saying that the Fed is not trading in gold, but Powell didn't really answer Mooney's question. Mooney wanted to know what markets is the Fed trading in. Powell didn't really answer the question other than denying any trading in gold. Powell said the Treasury would answer for itself, but this was a year ago and the Treasury has not answered Mooney's question. So presumably the U.S. Treasury is secretly trading in any number of markets and refuses to tell Mooney which markets they are. Mooney has also sent a letter, really duplicating a letter GATA itself sent to the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, asking the commission if it has jurisdiction over surreptitious trading by the U.S. government or U.S. government agents that manipulates markets, or whether market manipulation by the U.S. government and its agents is exempt from CFTC regulation. The CFTC refused to answer that question for GATA, just sent us a form letter some months ago, and it has failed to answer Mooney's questions, reiterating our questions. So the CFTC will not say whether it has jurisdiction over manipulative trading by the U.S. government or its agents. The U.S. Treasury Department will not say what markets it's secretly trading in. I think we can assume from that the United States government is indeed intervening surreptitiously in any number of markets at any particular time, and that its market manipulation is very specifically exempt from regulation by the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission.
They didn't actually come straight out and tell you that, but that's what you're surmising at GATA. That they're listen. We've asked the questions. We can't get an answer. Everybody's dodging it. So, basically they're manipulating the markets big time.
Yeah, we've long construed the Gold Reserve Act of 1934 to authorize the Treasury Department, through the Exchange Stabilization Fund, to intervene secretly in any market in the world. I was in U.S. District Court in Boston in 2001 during one of our lawsuits, and I heard an assistant U.S. attorney get up and moving for summary judgment dismissal of our lawsuit, saying that without admitting that the U.S. government was rigging the markets as we complained in our lawsuit, he said the U.S. government does claim the power to do what our lawsuit complained of. That was to secretly rig the markets. I think we've established this now to the satisfaction of any reasonable person. If the government will not say what markets it's intervening in, and if it will not deny intervening in markets, I think we fairly can conclude there is a lot of surreptitious intervention going on, especially since CME Group, which operates the major futures exchanges in the United States, has just renewed what it calls its central bank incentive program, which gives enormous volume trading discounts to governments and central banks for surreptitiously trading all the futures markets in the United States. Now, that central bank incentive program a few weeks ago was renewed until January 31st, 2020. So we know that CME Group has created a mechanism for secret trading by the U.S. government and other governments to get discounts in all the futures market trading they do in the United States.
So what does this mean to you? Talk to a lot of gold people. So I'm listening to this thinking, wow, I am playing in a rigged game. I might as well not even buy gold. What will you say to somebody who says that? I might as well not even buy gold and silver because there's no way they're ever going to let it go up. They're rigging the daylights out of it. It's never going to go up. What do people that you talk to? How do they respond to it? How would they respond to a question like that or a statement like that?
Let's say it's a fair question, Greg. There's a lot of demoralization in the sector, and I think probably most mining companies don't really care. They just want to tout their shares, and the executives just want to get their bonuses. The rationale for continuing to invest in the gold and silver sector and to acquire the metals is that typically at some point these manipulations do fail. This one has been going on a lot longer than previous manipulations because it's been using the futures market, which requires distorting a lot less government metal to maintain the manipulations. But at some point it will fail. I'd say if you're young, you've got a better chance of profiting from it. If you're my age, I'm not sure if I will live to see the day when the markets are liberated again. But there is certainly an enormous uncoverable short position in the monetary metals that's being underwritten by Western governments, central banks, very possibly Eastern governments as well. At some point, as happened with the London Gold Pool in 1968, the metal that they're prepared to lose will run out. And I think the governments and central banks will revalue gold, probably to reliquefy themselves after they have rebuilt their reserves.
What do you think about the Basel III kicking in April 1st, 2019 that gives a gold to tier 1 asset classification? They can now value it at 100% on their books as opposed to 50% on their books. What do you make with that? I mean, it looks like they're moving in that direction.
Well, it's certainly a proclamation by the Bank for International Settlements that gold is a superior financial asset, that it is as good as cash. It's as good as sovereign government bonds. Now, apparently the, excuse me, the United States has had its own standard recognizing gold as a superior asset, but now this is a worldwide standard set by the BIS. It will probably encourage commercial banks to obtain more gold for their balance sheets. I wouldn't say it's going to change the world overnight, but it is a proclamation by the highest international monetary authorities that the gold is as good as cash. It's as good as any other financial asset, better than most, nothing better. Some people may respond to that and decide that they ought to have a little more gold.
What I've been hearing from some of the guys that are experts in this field, in the trading field end of it, like, for example, Bill Holter and Jim Sinclair over at JS Mindset, they say, used to be when somebody would drop $1 billion like they did last week or a week and a half ago or so on the gold market, they get a much bigger bang for their buck, but they don't get that anymore. Why is that? Why are they not getting the big bang with $1 billion of money?
Well, these flash crashes do seem to be having less duration on the market, but you got to remember they've been doing this for many years. It's possible they're having less impact now because physical supplies are tighter than they were some years ago, and that may be why the market is bouncing back. I'm more concerned by the refusal of the mainstream financial news organizations to cover these most blatant interventions. I don't think the great power of central banking anymore is their their power to create and deploy infinite money in secret. I think their greatest power advantage right now is simply the refusal of the financial press to cover what they're doing.
Well, I mean, according to ABC News, I mean, Donald Trump has still got collusion. He's a Russian spy. According to the meltdown in the mainstream media, which told us a big lie for the last two and a half years, they basically have devolved into a propaganda outfits. All of them. They're just propaganda. They're losing audience. They're losing market share. I mean, some of them are down 50 to 30%. I mean, they're just propaganda, so I'm not surprised. They can't even tell the truth about a total lie, hoax, collusion, treasonous act, which is people are going to go to jail. Then what are they going to say? I don't know. But they're not even mentioning this. And you know what? I'll tell you, I don't think that people that invest money really watch CNBC and Fox Business to get information. I don't.
Well,
because it's bad.
I share your bad opinion of them. I could not be more disappointed in journalism institutionally these days, and yet they still have audiences that are worth reaching. And I think if they began to tell the truth about surreptitious government intervention in the markets, it would have an impact. I do send all of GATA's important disclosures to a list of mainstream financial news organizations and financial letter writers in the hope that someday they will manifest a little courage and begin to report these interventions and ask questions about it to governments and report the refusals of governments to answer. But it's very frustrating.
If they stopped manipulating the metals market, does the dollar tank? I mean, is it that simple?
Well, I think all currencies would probably devalue against the monetary metals if there was less intervention against the monetary metals. But it also would depend, I think, Greg, on the other markets that were still being intervened in. We know from the CME Group's central bank incentive program that central banks are eligible to get discounts for trading all major futures contracts in the United States.
That's bonds. That's forex. That's LIBOR. That's cattle, wheat,
Yes,
beans, gold, silver, bauxite, palladium, platinum, everything.
It's even agricultural contracts. It's astounding. Why would central banks want to trade agricultural futures contracts unless it was part of a comprehensive scheme of suppressing commodity prices in favor of financial asset prices?
To thwart inflation. So they found a way to thwart inflation, which brings me to this. Remember this 1979? Let me give you full cover. This was the contrarian pick of Business Week, the death of equities, and it didn't print very well, but it says how inflation is destroying the markets. The death of equities, big counter-intuitive thing. And here it comes out, and this is Business Week. And then Business Week joined with Bloomberg. And look at this. Bloomberg Business Week, is inflation dead? Is that could this be the big counter-intuitive, the opposite, the counter, market that, stocks went up from here and they never looked back. The bond market went up, everything went up. I mean, they had some big blips in 87 and 2000 and 2008 and, whatever. But is inflation dead?
This is worse than a prediction, Greg. It's a delusion. Inflation is all around us. And I don't know what world the government is living in when it puts out monthly reports saying inflation is tame. These people are not paying medical insurance premiums. They're not paying college tuitions. They're not paying state taxes. They're not going to the grocery store and seeing prices rise really monthly now. And of course, they're not noticing the inflation that has manifested itself in the stock market. The stock market valuations are far above any traditional ratios. Inflation is all around us. It's not dead. It's been all around us. The interventions in the commodities markets and in the equities markets have been pushing the inflation into financial assets, and the inflation data has been doctored in order to dissuade the public from thinking that their money is losing value. But will inflation show up more obviously in the future? I hope people will get wise to it, but I have no confidence that the government data is going to be more honest. But it's not dead. It's raging. It has been raging. Will it rage more in the future? I assume it will, but will we have any honest reporting about it? I'm not so sure about that.
You think that maybe that this is a big, giant conspiracy between the banks and the money printers and the Exchange Stabilization Fund, the Federal Reserve, all the global central banks, because they give global central banks discounts. You're saying that this is a giant conspiracy to keep the illusion that the paper money is worth something and inflation's not running away. Is that right?
I think it is a conspiracy to maintain the control over the world of the financial class. Now, the governors of the Bank for National Settlement meet every month in Basel, Switzerland. By definition, that is conspiracy. Those are representatives of all the major central banks in the world, and they hold secret meetings every month to decide how they're going to coordinate their interventions in the markets. William White, who some years ago was the monetary and economic director of the BIS, gave a speech in which he said that one of the four major purposes of international central bank cooperation was to influence asset prices, especially gold and foreign exchange. So these guys are meeting every month in Switzerland. They have their monthly meetings. You're not invited. I'm not invited. That is by definition conspiracy. When government officials gather in secret to formulate and execute a course of action, that is the definition of conspiracy. And I don't know why people who complain about conspiracy in this respect are derided as conspiracy theorists. This is conspiracy fact, and it will be conspiracy fact until the public is invited into the meetings of the governors of the Bank for National Settlements and the other central banks.
What could go wrong in your mind? You talk to a lot of influential people at GATA, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. What could go wrong? Your people aren't throwing in the towel on gold. I wouldn't. Nobody else would, because the numbers are awful. I mean, you have 22 trillion in the debt that they say here just in America. You got another 21 trillion, according to Dr. Mark Skidmore, the professor of economics and expert in public finance at Michigan State University, saying, wow, there's another 21 trillion they printed up. We don't know what happened to it. So what do you guys say about what could go wrong, and are they adamant about still holding the medal?
Well, it depends on your perspective. What I think could go right is what they think could go wrong. I hope that we can expose the market rigging, and we can try to return to a world where markets are free and transparent and government is limited and accountable. From the central banking perspective, that's what could go wrong. That the markets could stop being deceived and manipulated. The manipulation of markets, the rigging of markets, works only because of deception. If markets figured out they were being deceived, people wouldn't play in them anymore. They would find some other way to undertake their trades. What could go wrong for central banks? Well, I think eventually there will be too much debt. There already is too much debt. Interest on the debt will begin consuming the real economy, which I think is already happening. And in a fiat money system, there have to be regular debt devaluations at regular intervals so that interest does not devour the real economy. That has happened from time to time. I think every 30 years or so, we have a substantial currency revaluation and currencies are devalued. I think we probably will end up with that. Debt is going to have to be devalued away. Otherwise, interest on debt goes exponential and it devours the world. We can't let that happen. How it will be terminated, I don't know what central banks will do. I know some very smart people who think that central banks will get together on a weekend in Basel someday, and before the Asian markets open on a Sunday night, will announce new currency revaluations, and they'll announce the revaluation of gold, and the countries that have huge U.S. dollar surpluses will have hedged themselves with gold, and what they lose in a devaluation of the currencies, they will recover through the upward revaluation of gold, and maybe at that point we'll start another 50-year cycle of gold price depression.
So you think that a lot of people think the same thing that's going to happen in a weekend? That one of these days you're just going to throw in the towel. So you think that your smart people that you talk to are saying that one of these days they're going to have enough, and they're going to meet, and you're going to close the market on a Friday, and on a Monday you're going to have a brand new world.
Yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome. The U.S. economists and fund managers Paul Brodsky and Lee Quaintance wrote a paper, I guess about 8 years ago, Greg, in which they hypothesized that central banks were really redistributing world gold reserves, holding the price down in the futures market while they redistributed real metal among themselves, particularly to redirect gold to countries that had huge US dollar reserves that they needed to hedge. Brodsky and Quaintance thought that at some point gold would be revalued to devalue the dollar and reliquefy the central banks that were overweight dollars. Will this happen in my lifetime or yours? I don't know. I thought that was a very plausible hypothesis. They've done that before, and I think they'll do it again. I just don't know when it's going to happen, and I'm very tired of financial analysts who say that anything is only a matter of time, because of course everything is only a matter of time, including the Earth getting hit by another asteroid that wipes out most life. Everything is only a matter of time. The only thing that matters is the timing of things, and I'm sorry, I can't offer any timing, and I really try not to pay attention to people who get very specific about timing.
Well, I'm not talking about timing, but it's so funny. This is the Business Week article, and here they're worried. They're saying that how inflation is destroying the stock market. Of course, Paul Volcker came in and said we're going to raise rates to 20-something%, and we didn't have inflation. We had a 33-year bull market that's still going on today, basically, and then yet here they come out and is inflation dead? And boy, this could be the polar opposite effect, right? I mean,
well, it looks. Mark Twain said history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. This certainly rhymes, but I'm offended by that Business Week story less because it's a prediction than because it's a false description of the present. The inflation is all around us, and the government's not reporting it. And worse, look, we expect the government to lie, but we don't expect the press to lie, and that's an example.
Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, we do, and now
well, some of
we
us
do.
But the public doesn't.
We do. I lost my job at CNN because I wouldn't lie. I mean, basically, they didn't tell me that, but that's what people have told me. He says, "Oh, the reason why you're out, you wouldn't lie." I mean, So yeah, and you're in the press too. We both have this kind of kindred, idea of what the press should be. Like I'm not going to lie. He asked me to do it. But back to gold, back to silver. Is the smart money still investing in the gold? I talked to people like Egon von Greyer's, and he says, "We know, my people that I know how this ends, and it don't end well, and we do know how it ends." And
Well,
but is the smart money you talk to people still investing in gold? They're not going to be shaken, right?
well, I know there's a big audience for gold that is ideological. More important than the gold bugs, I think, are the governments, and we've seen enormous buying of gold by governments over the last few years, and it's not just Russia and China; it's other countries as well. That is very changed from how things were 4 or 5 years ago. Presumably, central banks that are buying gold know something or think they know something. I think they are expecting a currency revaluation, and they are preparing for it. They may be preparing for new arrangements in the world financial system that will reincorporate gold more formally into monetary systems.
Well, it has been. I mean, Basil did.
Well, that's right. That's a declaration of principle, but in practice, I think it invites central banks to do what they are doing, which is to acquire more gold in anticipation of its reincorporation into the world financial system. Now, does the Russian central bank, the People's Bank of China, do these other central banks know something? Well, they may. At least they attend those meetings at the BIS. I'm not invited, so I have to suspect that they know something.
There you go. Any closing words you want to say that you want to get out from GATA to people about the precious metals markets, about what you're doing, anything?
Well, I'd say, Greg, this is an issue far bigger than gold and silver. I mean, gold and silver are just minerals. They're atomic elements. The issue for us is much bigger than that. The issue is free and transparent markets and limited and accountable government. And you can't have those things unless you also have freely traded monetary metals markets and really freely trading currency markets as well. We do not worship, the golden calf or the silver bull. We are pursuing a much more justice-oriented agenda here. We want governments to tell us what they're doing in the markets. We want them to be open and accountable, and that requires, we think, free and transparent monetary metals markets. It's much bigger than gold and silver.
Oh, fantastic! Listen, GATA is a .org. It is a charity, or not a charity? Is it? Can you give donations to GATA?
Oh, sure.
It's nonprofit, I should say. Nonprofit,
yes,
correct?
A nonprofit educational civil rights organization. We're registered with the Internal Revenue Service in the United States as a 501c3 organization, so that donations to us are indeed federally tax exempt. You can help us by going to our internet site and visiting the How to Help page. We're welcome contributions by check and credit card, even by Bitcoin. And I can guarantee you anyone who donates even $5 to us will be donating more to us than Barrick Gold and Newmont Mining have ever done.
Yes, yes. And you also have information on there. You print articles, and I think you do some of the journalism and the webmastering there on the site. You got some good information all the time on GATA.org, GATA, Gold Antitrust Action Committee. Go ahead.
We invite people to sign up for our email dispatch list. We try to send out several things every day that might be of interest to gold investors and people who are interested in free markets.
Okay. Chris Powell from GATA, you are the Secretary Treasurer, also a journalist up in Connecticut. You wear a couple of hats. You're doing God's work, really, not like Lloyd Blankfein. You're doing God's work, my friend. You're sticking up for freedom and transparency, and I know you get a lot of grief for that. Chris Powell from GATA, GATA.org, thank you very much for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Well, thank you, Greg.